is the largest dungeon in this continent. This dungeon took about 150 African enslaved women in here. They were kept in here for 3 to 4 months period before being transported to the new world. When they were in the dungeons, they were given 2 containers placed at both ends of this dungeon for those African women to ease themselves, urinate, and do other things in it. But during the second month, some of the African women became so weak to the extent they couldn't get to the containers. So did everything on the floor. That included, their menstrual period. This same floor was where they were eating. This same floor was where they were sleeping. Now please over there you can see a hole. That hole leads to the magazine. The magazine was a place where the European soldiers kept their gunpowders and other chemicals that they were using. So when there's any leakage, that toxic smell that really comes down here and causes air pollution. So already the floor was contaminated and the air was polluted. So most of the African women kept in this dungeon lost their lives. Now the floor we're standing on is the original floor for 543 years old. These are sedimentary rocks. It was added to build the castle. As you're standing here, you could perceive the smell. That smell has been in here for over 400 years. It's a combination of the contaminated floor and the polluted air. The reefs you see there were brought by people to pay their last respect to our ancestors who died in here. Now please, let's get to the next dungeon.
Just a quick question. The walls that have some box between, because it's open now.
There was nothing there. It was, I think, bars. There. That's for air. Where we're standing is another dungeon. This dungeon took about 100 to 130 African. They were also kept in here for 3 to 4 months period before being transported to the new world. Now, what was going on in that dungeon, similar was happening here. The difference between there and here was, this place has no hole leading to the magazine. So their air wasn't polluted, but for the floor was indeed contaminated. Now please, on the floor you could see red bricks, and on the pillars you could see yellow bricks. The red bricks are coming from Portugal. The Portuguese brought them to adapt to build a castle, while the yellow bricks are coming from the Dutch. Now if you remember in my introduction, I made you aware that the Dutch and the Portuguese had a fight. When two countries fight, the possibility for things to be destroyed goes high. So whatever was bombarded, the Dutch used the materials to fix those places in this castle. So wherever you see yellow bricks, it's coming from the Dutch. Wherever you see red bricks, it's coming from the Portuguese. Now please, on the floor, you could see old cloth. These are not the original cloth used by the African women. In 2016, volunteers from West African countries came in here to exhibit a program. So they slept in here for about 12 hours, using the clothes to cover themselves. The next day, when the workers came, they saw that the place was really smelly, meaning those volunteers actually urinated here. Now, what they were trying to do was dramatize on what really happened to the African women. To tell a story that what you've been hearing concerning the slavery about the African women was true. That was why they did that. Now, please, at the top, you could see a rough wood. That wood is 543 years old. The rest were changed in 2005. Until now, nothing has been changed again. Now please, over here you could see these metal bars. Those metal bars were placed in the holes of this dungeon, but seawater and metals are never good friends. So it started rusting, so there was a need to be replaced with a wooden one. So these are wood, not metals. Now please, let's go.
Things up there.
What? Those were the source of lights when the Europeans were here.
Okay. A candle. Okay.
Okay. Then I come to this. In the coastal line of West Africa, it was termed as the white man's grave. Why? Because the Europeans that came were dying. After the selection, this was used to wash down the dirt on the African women. And so, what we are looking at is a water reservoir that was built by the Portuguese. It can hold about 20,000 gallons of water. It's quite deep, and it's directly from the rain. So when it rains, the water passes through the pipe you see there. Gets to this first before coming here. This was more or less like a filter. And this was the original water that they were using for their domestic purposes. Like I said, this same water was used to wash down the dirt on the African women, because when they were in the dungeons, they never had their bath. Their last bath was taken in a San Manso called the Slave River. That was ready to get their bath last. So coming in here for 3 to 4 months periods, they had nothing like water applied on their body.
Jesus.
So those who were fortunate to have water on their body, but those who were selected
For this.
to be raped. And they fetched the water and poured it on them as they were naked in front of their fellow African women.
Kai.
Also, the soldiers surrounded them.
Jeez.
This is the water.
Let's take a look at it, guys. Oh my God.
So how deep is this?
About 20,000 gallons of water can fill it. Alright. Now, after using this water to wash down the dirt on the African women, they then escorted them to the private passageway.
I'm scared though.
Now, where you standing was where African women died. They were killed and they lied here. Now, this has been written in Old Dutch, and it was written in the memory of one Dutch governor who was here, and the name was Van Tet. Because maybe we don't understand the language, so I would like to use my fingers to pick points of the words for you to understand. Now, the governor's name was Van Tet. It was from Zeeland, one of the cities in Netherlands.
It was a province at the time as well.
Yeah, province. Yeah. He was the last Director General of the West Indies Company over the north and the south coast of Africa. He was here 16th January 1758 and died that same year, 12 March 1758. He was 41 years when he died. Now, according to history, he died of malaria and was buried here. Now, what you see down here was written by another man called A. Andresses. What he was trying to say was that Dutch governor was a selfless, generous, and kind man. But the question people do ask is, if indeed he was a kind and generous man, why was slavery going on right under his nose? Was he just generous to his own people, or was he generally generous to everybody? That question can't be answered because no one has the answer to that question. Now, these are two separate cells. This is the European cell and this is the condemned cell. I want us to go to the cells and compare the two. Let's start with this.
This one was this, sorry?
European cell. So please let's go in.
Going into European cell first. Oh, Jesus.
Now, where is standing is the European cell. According to history, European men were brought here as a source of punishment. Now, you do know that wherever you go, there are rules and regulations governing people. So among the Europeans, they had their own rules that was governing them. But some of the European soldiers actually went contrary to their rules. So they were kept in here for a couple of hours. I repeat, couple of hours, not a day. They were given food and water, and they had enough ventilation coming from this side and the other side. So they just punished those who misbehaved. Now let's get to the other than sir. Let me
Jesus. Come on. Heavy.
Now please let's get. Let's all go. And so where you standing was where African men were brought. They were not in here for a couple of hours, days, months, yet, but they were kept here to die slowly. They were never given food or water, and they had nothing like ventilation. And what crime did African men commit? African men were fighting for their freedom, but the Europeans captured them and kept them here as a source of punishment for them to die slowly. Now, what we are looking to is not a source of ventilation, but rather this was a peeping hole for European soldiers to look through to see who was dead in here. So when they realized that the Africans are dead, they come in here, tie their body with stones, and throw their body into the seas for those Africans to drown, sink down for the fishes to eat their body. On record, Africans under the supervision of the Europeans were never buried. If an African man or woman is about to die or is dead, they tie them with stones and throw their body into the seas for them not to be traced again and for those bodies not to come back again. That is why some Africans till now can't find their roots, because those people that they thrown up to die inside the sea could be their roots, but because they cannot be found, they don't know where they're coming from. Now please let's get to the governor's residence.
Okay, guys, we are proceeding to the governor's residence right now. Good afternoon. I'm so tired. God. I told you I wanted to eat food. So I'm not taking my breakfast. I'm so tired.
That company belonged to the Dutch. And that was the logo on the metals that they were using to stamp the African men, their chest. Now please at the top you could see two buildings. It was built by the Dutch and made watchtowers. The Dutch kept the soldiers there to protect and monitor the castle from the outside, and the sea land. So when the enemy is coming from the sea, those soldiers, the first one was where they kept the Prempe, the Ashanti King Prempe the first. He was held in there for 4 good years before exiled to Seychelles Island. Later came back and became the chief of Kumasi, no more the Ashanti King. This particular one was where they kept Yasantua, the Ashanti woman warrior. She was 60 years old when she was arrested. She was also held in there for a year, but she was also exiled to Seychelles Island. Unfortunately for her, she died, but her remains was brought back to her hometown, that is Ejoso in the Ashanti region. Now please, let's go to the top.
Yeah, my amazing viewers, thank you for watching. We were able to visit the dungeons, the cells. Upcoming next is Parliament, visiting the parliamentary centers upstairs. So guys, thank you for watching. Like, share, comment and subscribe.